Paul,
Sure.
I'd like to turn it over to you now so you can tell us how you used Lean Six Sigma for reconciliation of vendor payments for various employee benefits.
Okay, no problem. Over the last few years, DCHR had multiple instances where various insurance providers were asserting that the district had not paid the full amount owed for our health, vision, dental, and disability insurance coverages. These contracts collectively are in the hundreds of millions of dollars, so any discrepancies can be very costly. I was able to work with my administration to leverage the Six Sigma DMAIC methodology to ensure that we and our providers were in agreement about the issues. Through this process, we were able to identify that in some instances, there were variances in how we defined our payment process versus how our providers interpreted them. This was generally an easy realignment that helped to alleviate hundreds of thousands of dollars that were believed to be owed. In other instances, we had to truly exercise the full DMAIC process, analyzing data to identify the variances between what was reported for enrollment data versus our payment data and our providers' billing records. Through this analysis, we identified where there were opportunities to align these three so that the costly variances were minimized.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Paul. It sounded like you had a big impact from that project too, if you can, just describe that.
So there are multiple impacts. First, the project allowed us to update our contracts to better define our payment processes, ensuring that both parties were in agreement. We knew that through this process, some of the variances were caused because the way that our vendors were billing us was different from how we were paying and how we had sent over our enrollment data. So getting everyone on the same page was one key element. We're also able to identify the source of the perceived variances between $2 and $4 million across the providers. So those actually equate to real dollars. And we improved our reconciliation process internally so that we could identify and address any variances earlier. We actually had a person who became full-time, reconciliator for our team to make sure that any data that was submitted to our vendors were done so after a thorough review. And we also improved our enrollment and payment reporting process to minimize the errors that were being transmitted. And finally, I would say that, as previously mentioned, these contracts were in hundreds of millions of dollars, which means that we had a lot of eyes that were on these from the perspective of everyone from the mayor's office to key other partners within the district, other agencies that had oversight, our Department of Insurance, Securities and Banking, for instance. So these were high value contracts that had the potential, if mishandled, to really create large issues. So we were able to really keep these at our level and ensure that issues were minimized so that we didn't see them on a front page of the news or the like.
Great, that's great. We have a question that came in from the audience, and I'd like to start back with you, Tony. What Lean Six Sigma tools do you find to be the most useful in government projects?
There's such a wide range of Lean Six Sigma tools. We obviously look at the threats and opportunity matrix as a really key one. That is something that's very helpful for us. Going in and being able to define our cycle time obviously is a really key piece for us as well, because we're going to really use that as a method or means to be able to clarify the workflow associated with the project that we're involved with. And it also helps us then to see, once we actually get into measurement about the work activities, which work activities are going to be key for us to continue and to enhance, which work activities can potentially be shortcut or potentially thrown away. So those are some of the key things that we really see as impactful with respect to the application of Lean Six Sigma.
Good, good. How about you, Paul? What tools do you find to be most useful?
Well, I would say at a high level that the overall DMAIC methodology really is a key tool within itself. We find that we have problems that overarch multiple partners or agencies, and being able to get or collectively have everyone at the table to really go through the process, the DMAIC process, and really first define what the problem is from our key perspectives and agree upon that, as well as understanding what data is available and being able to measure, analyze, and so on. So I think the process itself has really been fundamental to how we are able to make sure everyone's on the same page and kind of move forward as a collective unit.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. One of the other things is that you both are so encouraged by your process improvement projects. Can you give our participants some advice on the most important considerations in integrating, cross-functional systems inside the government? That seems like a big challenge for a lot of agencies. Tony, can you speak to that?
Well, there are a couple things that come to mind for me, Wendy. One is know your issues. Make sure that you can identify what the concern is, and also understand and clearly articulate not only those issues, but the impact of either action or, in some cases, inaction. Another piece is involve people throughout the process in your redesign. Sometimes we tend to go to folks that we're comfortable with or deal with people at a higher level, but the reality is that people all throughout the process are integral to making sure that things are successful. And you typically find some of the best ideas from those people who've worked closest to the action. Another piece is make sure that you understand prioritization, know what your steps are, and also they come back to that old adage of the 80-20 rule. What are those things that are going to carry the most impact for you in terms of your process redesign or the changes you're looking to make? Another piece of it, I think, is to make sure that you take into account not only those considerations that are being brought forward, again, at different levels, but don't be too quick to discount some of the things that are being discussed, because what you do find is when you drill down a little bit, you can start pulling out some kernels of knowledge that then, again, integrate into what you're ultimately trying to do. And then finally, I think the most important thing is always begin with the end in mind so that you do not get distracted, because too often what we find is scope creep can occur, or that we may then lose sight of that bigger picture. So I think that's the most important piece right there.